Aviation is an ultra-safe industry because everyone, industry, manufacturers, regulators, have all got a vested interest in making sure we achieve the safest outcome we possibly can.
What we've got to do with this is recognise the legislation on the one hand, but also recognise that we're dealing with real life on the other. So there will be operators that will look at the legislation and say, I'll need a little bit more.
When we develop regulations, we need to do so to identify known or likely safety risks. And we need to, if our solution is a regulation, that we need to make sure that that regulation mitigates that risk. Much of this work centres around pilot training, pilot competency and pilot flight testing on the international stage.
Under the new licensing regulations, there are two levels of flight training operator. There are Part 141 operators and Part 142 operators. The new rules for Part 141 simplify the organisational structure and requirements that a smaller flying school needs to comply with compared to the old system.
We see the 141 model as being able to deliver the private and commercial training in a non-integrated program, and to also deliver a range of other training courses such as instructor courses, instrument courses, anything that is single pilot and including some type-rated aircraft.
A 141 organisation, the intention there was to define a school that could be created to deliver a number of training outcomes, but more at the the simpler end of aviation. But what you can't do is train in an integrated fashion. So integrated training courses for PPL or CPL can't be trained in a 141. So the delineation between the two is the 142 activities that can be trained, integrated training for licence outcomes, type ratings and multi-crew type training. The rest can be done in a 141 school.
My dad made these chocks for me. This organisation will have to transfer to 141 because that's the largest part of our activities. I do not believe that it would make any sense for us to transfer to 142 because I see that as being way too complex and onerous. The systems and processes and infrastructure that's required to properly support a 142 application and the ongoing operations of a 142 organisation are beyond what would normally be needed for the bulk of the day of the operations of this kind of a school. Morning. I suppose it's the difference between, running Woolworths nationwide and the local grocery store. You need a different level of systems and procedures and operating manuals and requirements for a large organisation. And it doesn't mean to say that the standards are different, but they are achieved more through the culture of the organisation and the way the individuals operate that organisation, because the span of control is much smaller. So in a small organisation, if the culture is right, it's easier to ensure a consistency. Once an organisation gets to a certain size, it does need, to ensure consistency, much more standardisation of procedures. I'm seeing that as a major difference between a 141 and a 142 school. Round to the left. You're still tending to brake and throttle.
A 142 school, because it's training at the more complex end of flight training, requires a number of systems to support that training. So because you can conduct integrated training, which gives you an hour's advantage in the training you deliver, calls for a greater number of systems to support that advantage that you're seeking to achieve. So you need a training management system which defines the order in which the training is conducted, and because of the complexity of the school, you need a safety management system to ensure safety outcomes are achieved.
Because of the fact that our school has been able to provide the 150-hour integrated course in the past, pre-Part 142, the requirement basically for us meant that we had to go down the track of 142 rather than losing the 150-hour integrated course. As far as our getting to that state is concerned, we had to write the appropriate manuals. We had to reformat our operations manual into the new Part 142 standard. We had to write the exposition. We actually used a lot of the guidance material on the CASA website in order to achieve that standard prior to submission of the Part 142 exposition.
CASA has provided a great deal of advice and support on the CASA website. In terms of support, CASA has provided a Part 141 sample operations manual, which people can download and edit, and it has a guide to go with it, of course. We've also provided sample syllabuses of training. And likewise with Part 142, we've provided a sample or a template 142 exposition. The benefits to using the sample templates are twofold. One, it saves the industry money, and importantly, CASA's written the manuals. CASA is extremely familiar, therefore, of course, with the manuals. So the benefits to the aviation community of using those templates, such that a person only changes the text relating to them, is already approved.
Basically, it was just a process of taking the parts out that didn't apply to our operation, putting the parts in that did, and writing the manuals and reformatting the manuals to comply with the Part 142 exposition.
People often talk about I'll transition to Part 141 or Part 142, and that may well be the case. But people really need to ascertain what is the flying training I would like to do, what authorisation do I need to do that. Indeed, often that may well be both authorisations would be required. For example, if a flying school wanted to conduct integrated commercial pilot licence training and instrument rating training, you'd need to be authorised under Part 141 and Part 142. Now that might sound like a bit of red tape, but in fact, of course, CASA would apply a very practical approach to that. If you wanted to do activities that were in both regulations, CASA would of course assess you to the Part 142 requirements and indeed issue you both authorisations.